What's up, you beautiful chuds, and welcome to the Let's Talk Horror channel podcast, and welcome to the Creep Zone, where we have very honest, very unrated, unfiltered conversations about something from the world of horror. On this episode, it's a little bit different to the recent movies, the run of movies that I've been talking about. I've been going through some deep cut 80s horrors. I've sort of been, since my return from the unfortunate hiatus that I'm not going to fucking bang on about again. But we've done The Hitcher and we've done Don't Breathe, those sort of movies that should be spoken about more. On this episode, we're talking about a movie that probably people should be talking about less. Not just because of, obviously it's a fantastic movie and we're going to be talking about it. But this is a movie that is definitely out there. This is a big movie, not just for horror, but it's a big movie for cinema, and we're going to go into it all. So, of course, we're talking about The Substance, and with me, talking about the Substance, I have a guest with me. This is the first time he's been on the show, and if he likes it, which he probably will hate this, because I always think anyone's going to hate it, but if he does like it, I'm sure he will return. But we have Dan. Dan is from the Bearded Horror Reviews. Hi, Dan. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you, mate. How are you doing?
I'm living the dream. This podcast, YouTubing, Let's Talk Horror dream, where everything is hunky dory.
Oh, it's the best dream you can have. Okay.
Absolutely. But yeah, so what we're going to do is, obviously, Dan is going to promote everything that he's doing with everything that he does at the end of the show. And make sure you stick around because Dan has really saved my ass in this episode. This episode wouldn't really be happening without him saving me on this one. And also, I've been ill as fuck all week, which is why if I sound a little bit manlier than I normally do, then you're welcome. So The Substance was released in 2024. So it's a very, very recent movie, especially for Let's Talk Horror, because we very rarely talk about recent movies, because most of them are shit. And it's nice to talk about one that might not be. It's directed by, now this is where I'm going to get it completely wrong, Coralie Fargeau. I'm just saying it like that so it sounds a little bit fancier, but that's probably wrong. That's got to be wrong.
Yeah, and bless you.
Absolutely. But so some people may or may not know that she, so previously to this, she directed a movie called Revenge.
Yes.
And Revenge is a movie that I would say to you people that if you like this movie, and we're going to go into it all, where The Substance is a very hyper stylized movie. The Revenge and her as a director is definitely a very visual, a very hyper stylized director. So if you like the technical side of cinematography and how movies look on aesthetically, go and watch Revenge. But do prepare yourself, because unfortunately, Revenge, the structure or the opening of the movie goes on. It basically starts as a horror trait that should never be a horror trait to start a story in cinema. It deals with sexual assault. I hate the fact that it deals with sexual assault as a story starter, because we shouldn't be doing it, and the fact that it shows it, and it's not great. So if you don't like that, don't watch Revenge. But the movie itself is good.
Oh, that first 30 minutes is a tough watch. But the rest of the film justifies it, and it makes you 100% root for her. It's a fantastic film. I really love Revenge. And when I heard that she was making The Substance, I was so excited, because I loved that film, not for the horribleness, but for the way the film is structured and everything. That film Revenge is really good. So I was really excited for this one when I found out it was her.
Yeah, and I was exactly the same way. It was like, she's such a talented director when it comes to the visual medium of cinematography. And Revenge is a truly stunning movie. So as I said, without going into a review about Revenge, but if you like movies that look great, watch Revenge. If you like movies that have fucking incredible soundtracks, Revenge is one. I've got that on vinyl. It's an amazing soundtrack. But it's a good movie, but just prepare yourself for the start of that movie, because it does something that I personally don't feel that it's a story starter of an idea and a concept. It's just very difficult, because there are other ways that we can start stories. We don't need to start them there. But where it goes, like you're saying, Dan, is fantastic. So go and watch it. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the substance, which is also. So the movie is starring Demi Moore. Obviously, Demi Moore. I don't need to say anything more about. She's a legend. No. She's an icon, and I'm going to talk about. I mean, how incredible she is in this movie and what she puts herself through. Margaret Qualley, I don't know. That might be right. That might be wrong. But, this is what happens when you're an idiot like me. You get names wrong. But I didn't know this until recently. Do you know who her mum is?
I feel like I do. But I can't remember.
It's Andy McDowell. So anybody who's like in the 80s and 90s, you will know. So she was like in Groundhog Day, 4 Weddings and a Funeral, Set Elmo's Fire. She was in Multiplicity. Like she was in so many movies. I didn't even know that it was her mum. So I don't know. Did she get classed as what they call the Nepo baby or whatever?
Yeah, that's definitely nepotism. But now you say it, I can see it. You can see it. And
you can.
I feel like I heard that a while ago, but it's obviously slipped my mind.
It's like the whole Jason Patrick thing, and then you don't realise that his dad is like the guy that's in The Exorcist, and you're like, what the fuck? You're like, mind is blown, and it's like, they're all fucking related. And then, of course, as well... Go on, sorry.
I was going to say, I don't feel like there's a star now that doesn't have a famous parent.
Yeah, it feels like that.
I can't think of one.
I mean, we're talking about... I mean, I'm just about to say the other person of this movie is Dennis Quaid, and he's got a fucking... Jack Quaid, who's fucking in everything at the moment. So it's just an all incest pool of Hollywood, isn't it?
Yeah. I can't help but hear Dennis Quaid. Do you remember the channel E4? They used to have this commentator that was like, talk like this all the time. And there was a film, I think it was The Day After Tomorrow. And he'd always go, The Day After Tomorrow, starring Dennis Ruddy Quaid. Every time I see Dennis Quaid, I can't help but hear about Dennis Ruddy Quaid.
That's brilliant. And I bet you that's probably like his thing that he wants everybody to say as he walks into a room. Just Dennis
If I ever meet him, I'll do it and let you know.
You're going to be like, oh, it's Dennis Ruddy Quaid.
Ruddy Quaid.
Absolutely. But other than that, I don't need to say anything else because that's pretty much all the people that are like, the central point of the movie. You've got Demi Moore, Margaret Qualley, and Dennis Quaid, and they are essentially the ones leading the movie. On IMDb, this is a 7.2 out of 10. As we all know, on IMDb, if you're 6 or above, you're essentially an Oscar winner. And then at 89% on Rotten Tomatoes, if you live your life by that, then it tells you that you should go and watch it. Google synopsis wise, fading actress Elizabeth Sparkle becomes distressed when her chauvinistic boss fires her from her aerobics show. She soon injects herself with a mysterious serum that promises a younger, better version of herself, but things go horribly wrong. So there's your Google synopsis for everyone. Obviously, they're mostly always shit, but they sort of, I think now with the injection of AI, now it's not just some bloke in Leicester hitting a keyboard. Now they're using AI. They're getting a little bit better than the guy who can't be fucking bothered to do another synopsis. But also what I like about it is that with this movie, with the synopsis, what it's really telling us is that not just about what happens in the movie, but the nature of what the metaphoric, the metaphors of what the movie can be. And I'm looking forward to sort of talking a little bit about that. Not too much because I'm thick as shit, so I don't understand a lot of them. But the ones that I do understand, we'll talk about. One of the things that I normally ask my guests is when you first saw the movie, but it's a pretty new movie. Did you see it at the cinema or was it just on streaming?
I did, yeah. I saw it on release day. 3 in the afternoon, I think it was. I think it was the first showing at my local Odeon. I just happened to be able to go. I think there was about 7 people in the cinema. And so I was really excited for it. So I made sure I was able to go see it as soon as possible. It was an amazing cinema experience, this one. It was, I could tell other people might not have been digging it, but watching it in the cinema, it was on a massive screen as well, and the sound was fun. But the sound of this film, the music and the sound design needed that experience for me, and it made it was a great experience. Honestly, saw it, and so day one.
Very nice. I got to see it in the cinema, but it was after when they did like a re-release of it because I saw I got to see it like when they basically put it out on Mubi of all places, and I did like that 7-day free trial where you do the 7-day free trial, then you cancel it the second that you do it, but you still got the 7 days. You know, that's the type of person that I am, and but that's it. But I saw it, and what you said is exactly how I thought until I got to see it in the cinema, where I was sitting there and I was just like, it's criminal that I'm not watching this on the big screen. And then when I got to, I was just like, fucking hell, and you're right. And we're going to get into it all. Like, the sound design in this movie is just like, it goes to show, you know, her talents. Coralie Fargeau. I don't fucking know. I apologize to her. Not that she's ever going to see this shit, but I apologize for getting it. But you can tell that there's so much fucking talent of, you know, of filmmaking on every aspect. And even if it's not her doing it, you understand, like, obviously she's got the right people in the right places to go, right, okay, well, this person I want to do sound, this person I want to do this. And it all works towards the movie. And then we get all these great things like the homages. And I've got a big thing that I want to say about the homages later on. But to start us off talking about the movie, we almost essentially get straight into a homage, because the first thing that we get on screen is the reanimator juice. And and that's like sets up. As soon as I saw that, I was just like, it's fucking reanimator. We've got the green juice.
Even the names are similar. You've got your reagent and the activator. Like they're similar sounding, almost similar like use of word. And it's and Reanimator is one of my favorite films as well.
Yeah.
So the fact that, you know, they've used that kind of reference almost, saying this is like going, this is one of those, if it was made in the 80s, it would be like that kind of gory Reanimator kind of film. And that's what I feel like that's what they were trying to say almost with this kind of, well, a lot of the homages that are in this film. Not just that one, but that one in particular, it's an on the nose saying this is an A-class B movie. And that's what it felt like when I saw all these things, especially when I saw that straight away going into the egg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like
really good little reference.
And I like the fact that opening scene is almost like the explanation or like saying to you, by the way, this egg has gone from 1 to making 2, and this is what happens in the movie. We don't need to explain anything else, because they don't explain anything else. That's what I love about it. Like they just go, here's it. There's no like science behind it all, and I think that's a great thing for it, because sometimes, you know, to be honest, there are some movies where they're not structured and created as well as this. You do want to understand a little bit more of the backstory of going, where does it all come from? What does it all do? You know, why is it this? But with this movie, because of the fucking pace of it and how wild it is, and because what it does, you don't. I personally don't really think about anything other about the journey we're on, but also like I'm like, oh, okay, it's just fucking reanimator juice, and it makes one egg become 2, and this is the movie, and we don't need any more explanation than that. And I think it's a really just a really cool start to it, because you're like, oh, there we go, we're in it.
And even in that opening shot, it does explain everything really about the film in a sense of like the main crux of it. Because if you look at the eggs, one of them's, and it looks like an egg, and then when the yolk comes out the other one, it's more yellow, it's more perfect. There's not as much sheen on it from the lighting. It's going to say what's coming out of this is better, it's nicer, it is the better version of whatever it's gone into. It's all these, the filmmakers went forward with so much intent. Everything is it as intent. Like we were talking about the sound and stuff, like even everything like that. She shot everything with the intent before going into it, and that's what makes this film so vibrant and well structured. Is that there's so much thought had gone into it from the off.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. And once again, what I love, and this is what's great about cinema, is that if you get the right person to do that, we're just talking about a 5-second shot, if not more, of a fucking egg. You know what I mean? and that's it. And then we sit here having a 5-minute conversation about eggs, and that's the power of creation if you do it on the right level. But we go straight from that egg. We go into Elizabeth Sparkle and a Hollywood star, and basically we've got the star throughout the years. What this is essentially saying to us is that this is going to be our character that you're on the journey with. But time has passed. She was once this big Hollywood star, but we all know what Hollywood does to these stars, and this is what obviously a lot of the movie is about, and we're getting to. And then we cut into straight with exercise time with Demi Moore, looking still obviously, fucking stunning. You know,
absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I think she's, and in the film she's supposed to be 50, but she's actually in real life 60. Is she?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they basically were like she's 10 years younger because she can fucking pass for it. But yeah, in real life she's 60 and she still looks great. But then we get like our first sort of like look at Dennis Quaid, where he goes into the toilet and he is basically essentially they're looking, as Hollywood does, all they're doing is looking for the younger model, and Elizabeth Sparkle, she hears this while she's in the toilet. She knows essentially, unfortunately, with what Hollywood does, her time's up, and she's got obviously at this point she doesn't really know what obviously the substance is. But then from this point onwards, we get what is the fucking most grossest part of the fucking movie. And it, you know what, like this movie, what's great about it, and we get into it always, that this is a body horror movie, a mainstream body horror movie that we got to see on the big screen, winning everything that it did. So it's great for body horror. So there's some really fucking gross moments in it. But who'd have thought that Dennis Quaid eating shrimp would be the most fucking gross thing that you've ever seen?
And this is the thing I was talking about when it came to the sound, because the grossest parts of this film, I mean, bar the ending, is the sound design. And it was like, it's just two people eating dinner, and it's a guy eating shrimp. And it might you see him doing it, he's kind of shoveling it in, and you're like, oh, that's a bit gross. And then it slowly, and it goes to this slower motion version of what he's doing, massively close up. The sound gets elevated to a ridiculous level of him chewing and shoving this food in. And it made me feel so gross. But that's the truth of it. Like I said, it's that intense, and that she was like, I'm going to make this man as gross as possible.
Yeah.
And it's taking all of those elements and using the visuals and the sounds to really make you feel like Demi Moore feels in that moment. She's disgusted by this man because he's doing this to her for no reason other than she's had a birthday. And you can feel it. Like, you're disgusted with him. And you're like, and everything he does now is disgusting. And not because of his actions and his decision and what he's doing to it. Not because he's being gross. It's because he is gross.
Yeah.
And it really nails that home.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because there's two things just about this scene alone that I love. One, exactly like you were saying, throughout this whole movie, the way that they're shooting it with these like wide angle, like almost fisheye like anamorphic lenses, and they do it as close as they can to his fucking face. They're trying to make him look as grotesque as he possibly can. And that almost leads into, I think, the bigger metaphor of what this scene is. Because this scene is essentially, he is doing to the shrimp to what he's been doing to people in his career. He's chewing them up and spitting them out. And that is essentially, I love this scene because it is just gross. The fact that Dennis Ruddy Quaid is eating some fucking gross, disgusting shrimp. And it's as close. And as you're saying, the sound design is incredible. But it also is pretty much, saying this is what this person does to these people. And he's doing it. He's sitting there doing it with food as he is doing it with Demi Moore at the time. And once again, it comes to be how fucking clever it is.
Yeah. And it's that kind of thing as well, as like, he's basically firing her because she's old and gross, for lack of a better phrase. And he is the one being this gross. It's like, are you serious? You're telling me that I'm too gross?
Yeah.
I look like this?
Yeah, I'm Demi Moore. Fuck you. Yeah, it's wild. But from this point onwards, we leave that scene where you're grossed out, and then she gets into obviously this car crash, and this is where once she gets into this car crash, once again, do you know what? Like, it's almost impossible to talk about any scene from this movie. So I'm going to try and leave it more so from the end to the end of our discussion, where it's difficult to not talk about how perfectly created those moments are, because it is just a car crash. But the way that it's shot, you feel like you're in that car crash. It doesn't feel Hollywood. It feels like a fucking car crash. It feels like one of those, like, if they were going to go, this is a real car crash, and they put it on one of those, like, videos, like, don't do drugs or don't drink and drive. You know what I mean? Like, like, this is what it's like to be in a car crash. And it's so greatly done, but it's the impact that it has on you when you're watching it, because you're like, oh, fuck. Like, you know, didn't see that coming. And it's fucked up, and it's a great scene once again. But then that's what, like, every scene in this movie feels like.
Yeah, it's that, and it's that most of the film, until, you know, it happens and the split happens, you don't take away from Demi's point of view, because even the crash, it's shot from inside the car, so it's always around what she's seeing and how she's seeing the world. It happens because she gets distracted by something that she sees. And you watch from inside the car as this impact then happens. And it's not a Hollywood-fied crash where cars explode and roll everywhere. You're just seeing the result of what happened from how she sees it. And then you get that scene in the hospital, which you talked about, is, again, she's seeing her life as it is and falling apart. And you've got all these men around her, like Dennis Quaid, and then the doctor having the no clue of how to be a human being to a woman, because he goes, oh, it's your birthday, happy birthday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's like, he hasn't got a fucking clue, and it's great because once again, like, what's really funny is that this movie is basically saying men are fucking dicks, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm a man, and I'm like, yeah, we're dicks, and and unfortunately, but also at the same time, we know that, like, it's because she's saying that this is what, you know, the Hollywood life is like. This is what it's like. You know, this is what this is. You know, this is show business. You know, this is what she's saying in this movie. But also, what I love about it is that we almost get a little bit of a setup for something that comes later with the Doctor, which I'll talk about a little bit later as well. But we get the setup with that, but also the guy's voice is fucking perfect. Like, the way that he's got, like, this sort of, like, deeper voice, and obviously it's the voice that we get on the telephone later and stuff like that. But it's just the way that every aspect of this movie works, and this is where she's given a USB that says the substance on it. So it's not discreet at fucking all. Like, if the police turn up and they're like, so what is it? And they're like, oh, the substance. Oh yeah, there we go. You know what I mean? There's no hiding it. It's a fucking big USB stick saying the substance. But he gives it to but the guy's, like, voice as he's talking, it doesn't feel like a real voice, but it's the way that it works with the movie. Like, once again, it's hyper stylized. Everything in this movie is hyper stylized, but in, like, the best possible way, and it's great.
It's even his look. Like, you look at him and he looks fake.
Yes.
His perfectly plastic porcelain skin with that very obvious fake tan, and it's that, like, all the men around her are fake. Yeah. Everything that happens to her up until the breaking point of everyone's fake. The Doctor obviously didn't care about her that much, and you know, was oblivious about her happy birthday. Dennis Quaid doesn't care about her, and you see this nurse, and it's also like he's just going, oh, well, maybe this will cheer her up. Oh, whatever. I'm not going to explain it to her. Here, take it. Do what you want with it. It's not like you're not actually taking into consideration her as a person, and you're just seeing it as here's a thing, and you're a thing, and here's another thing, and I can take this and whatever. And it's just so obvious that men are shit. But there's so many films that do that kind of now, that men are shit. But this one actually puts you on her side so well.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's interesting because there are so many movies that make men shit, and that's fine because, like, you know, we are. We can be pretty shit. Well, we can be. You know what I mean? We can be pretty shit. You know, some of us are nice. Some people are dickheads. But I do like the fact that in other movies, it doesn't give the right really to do that, or a reason, the right or the reason to do that within the purpose of why they're doing it in the movie. You know, whereas with this, as you're saying, there's a reason, there's a structure to what they're saying,
Yeah.
because they are this movie is not just an incredible movie. This movie is a message, and that's what they're trying to put out. And the fact that they're putting that message across so well in this movie, that's why it works, and that's why as a man I'm not like offended by it. I'm like,
no,
I fucking get it.
It's done without beating you over the head with it, because there's other films where, like we were talking about Revenge, they beat you over the head with how awful these men are in that film. But in this one, it's like it's more realistic that they're just inept rather than actually, other than Dennis Quaid. That a lot of the men that they come across, they're just oblivious, or they just don't get it, or they don't see why it's a problem, because they're just going like, oh, I'm trying to be nice. Oh, I'm just, I'm just saying something this. I'm just doing this. Or like, yeah, what's your problem? Yeah, you are getting older. What's your problem? And it's that kind of, you don't get it. You don't get why this is a problem. And so it's less about how awful he is and just how dumb they are.
Yeah, it's just that typical Hollywood thing where people aren't people, they're objects, and that's the way that's the way that they look at it. And this movie does a very, very good way of representing that, that sort of, real life aspect of people are objects, they're not human beings in Hollywood.
Exactly.
But then she gets this USB, she goes home, she watches it, and then she chucks it in the trash. She's just like, I don't want anything to do with that. But then she realizes, actually, I might want to do it. So then she gives them a call, and then she gets a letter with a key card, and then she goes to like the dodgy side of Hollywood. This is where it's like all underground shit. And what once again, it goes back to the whole USB stick. It's funny how it's like all underground shit where they don't want people to know about it, but they're happy to put the substance on a big fucking USB stick. It's like, it's not too discreet. But I also I love the little touches in this movie where the door doesn't open all the way, where she's using the key card, and she has to duck under. And once again, it's great filmmaking, great storytelling, because you're like, you don't have to do that. But it's also another moment where it's just like, is she adding it in because it's another thing where they're saying she's got to work for it? And that's what there's so many fucking hidden metaphors in this movie. It's wild.
It's all these, like, how many obstacles are you willing to pass to get what you want or what you feel you need? And there's so much things, like, it's actually they could have set that up anywhere, but they've set it up on the most dodgy side of town. They've made a door that doesn't work. They're deliberately not telling you what it is. And it's like, but do you want youth? Do you want to be more successful? You're going to have to prove it. And as a woman, that they're having to constantly work harder in that, as an older woman in Hollywood, having to work harder to get that same success. And I feel like that's kind of what it's doing, almost showing us that she has to keep working harder. She can't even go through a door.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They can't even make a fucking door open for her properly. She's got to work out. She's got to do whatever she has to do to get through the door before she even gets anywhere. And that's once again, it's so fucking clever. This is why a movie like this gets the recognition that it gets, and should still be getting, because of what it is. And I do hope, and I'll talk about this later, but I do hope that this is a movie that over time continues to become more, because it deserves to be. But obviously she goes in, she gets this box, and then here we go, she gets a full box of goodies. So step 1, we get the activator. Step 2, we get the stabilizer. Step 3, we get the switch. And remember, you are one. It's like Scream. There's rules. You've got to, what I mean? There's rules. And I love it when they set up the rules, because as soon as those rules are made, there's rules to be broken. And that's what sets it up, because you're already intrigued. You're like, oh, okay, so where is this all going to go fucking wrong? And you're already excited about seeing where that all goes.
And that's what I was going to say about what you were saying earlier about the over-explaining and stuff. Or it just tells you exactly what you need to know. You don't need to know any more. Here's the 3 rules. Here's how this works. That's it. And then everything else you can learn as it goes. And then you can see these 3 rules. This is why it'll go wrong. Don't need to tell you any more than that. If you over-explain it, it pulls it apart. But here it is. Here's it laid out. This is the structure. There you go. We don't need any more. And it really just kind of makes you go, okay, I know what I need to know. And if you do get curious, it just makes you more intrigued, rather than going, well, you've not explained this. How does it work? Why do I need to? Why can't I know this? Why can't I know that? You just go in, well, it's going to do something, and these are the rules. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I want to know more.
Yeah, you're more so thinking about where it's going to go tits up than thinking about
Yeah.
where it all came from, and that's the testament of the creation and the writing of the movie. But this is where essentially it all begins, because we get the reanimator fucking liquid, and it all kicks off. It's gross, but it looks awesome. Basically, she injects it, and then we get like the scene where we get more body horror, where her back opens, and it's fucking gross, but it's great. It's like because it's all practical. It's incredible. We're in, or because if you're like me, and I talk about this a lot on the show, is that as a kid, I was watching more horror movies, and I wasn't grossed out by them. I was in awe of them. Because that people, if it's practical, are creating that, and they're what they're doing is incredible. And horror has always been like that. And the fact that now this came out in 2024, and we're watching a body horror in modern day where they're creating real practical effects that are doing things like this, you're in awe of it. And it's so great, this scene where, she comes, Margaret Qualley basically comes out the fucking gross back of Demi Moore, and it's so unnerving. It's really unsettling. But also, you're like, what the fuck? Like, you know what I mean? It's wild.
See, what I love about that scene as well, I mean, as much as I love the actual birth, for lack of a better word, as well, and the fact that it is practical makes it so tangible and feel real and visceral. It's the before and after of Demi Moore at the start of that scene is inspecting her body as she's looking at it as, I'm aging, I'm like, and she goes full nude for the scene, which she didn't have to, but it kind of shows that she's just stood there in a bathroom. She's not being sexual in any way. She's just exploring her body and how she feels. And then once Sue is born, I just remembered her name. Her character's name.
Also, the most unsexy name, and that's what's hilarious about it.
I know, but she gets born, and she does the same thing once she tidies everything up. But she inspects her body as a newborn, and she goes through hers, and she feels her body in a more positive light. But Demi Moore's was looking at it in a negative way. But they both look incredible. But it's that perspective look of what they both had a different perspective of the exact same thing. I think there's a good 2 minutes of Sue just in the shower, touching herself all over, exploring herself as a newborn, and it shows that difference of how they view themselves, even though they are the same person technically.
And you're exactly right. And what's also like insane to me as well is that when because obviously Sue, she's basically has to sew up the back, and they're almost doing it with like a fucking shoelace, and it's almost as if that other body, that once again it's almost like the disregard of the old body, and how like it's not a surgical thing, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like there's any necessarily need to go, let's look after that body that is your body because you are one. Let's just sew you up with some fucking shoelaces, because all they're going to do is lay there on the floor. And remember, this is the old body that you don't want anymore, so it doesn't matter. And there's obviously something really strong to say about that as well. And it's just so how everything is meticulous, and they show it all, and it's fucking insane to me how meticulously beautiful and incredibly thought out everything is.
And I feel like it sows the seed for what's to come of the disregard for each other's person. And they both show disregard for each other in each other way, and in different ways as the film goes on. And it's that's the first seed for me. That's like, she's gone, you just sew this up with whatever you've got. It's nothing fancy. It'll heal, whatever. And there's that kind of thing of, this body is just now an empty shell. Just fill it up. Just sew it up and do whatever. There's no explanation of how to take care of each other really, more than anything, other than a couple of words. And it kind of, for me, that cements the attitude that she has straight away for what's then to come, for the whole
for everything that happens in this fucking insane movie. But now she is Sue, She goes and obviously has her audition with obviously the big time Hollywood pervs, obviously including Dennis Ruddy Quaid, as you said, who has obviously now found his new star in Sue. As I said, Sue is like the most I never expected Sue as the name to come out of her when she says it, and I love that even more because it's not like I don't know, it's just such a strange name for them to go, what's your name? And it's, you know, Elizabeth, as we know, it's like a big, like Hollywood sort of, you know, Elizabeth Taylor, you know what I mean? Maybe Elizabeth Hurley for some. But, you know, but, you know, Elizabeth Hurley is probably on a different sort of level as to, you know, I mean, you know, us gross men probably. But anyway, so she has the audition. Obviously, she's now the golden girl for Dennis Quaid. But then time flies, and it's time to switch back. So obviously, after every 7 days, they have to switch back. And life presumes basically for Elizabeth where without going and doing what she used to do. She doesn't have to go to work and anything like that. And we have a little moment with Elizabeth basically as Elizabeth, but then it's back to basically going back to Sue again, who somehow develops the most incredible DIY skills that I've ever seen to create a little room in the bathroom that is fucking perfect, and it makes me laugh every time.
And it makes you think then, like on the actual film, then like they said it's a better version of you. Is it just physical? Because she's obviously stronger and she's obviously smarter in some ways. Like you don't just learn how to do that in the space of a week. And so it's that kind of, it's like this person is you plus in every single way. But the one thing that everyone around them cares about is how she looks.
Yeah, that's
like
a
she
really
doesn't
good
even
thought.
dance.
Yeah.
She doesn't even dance for the audition. She just stands there and says, "I'm Sue," and they just look at her and they go, "Yep, she's the one." They don't know if they need a dancer. I mean, it turns out she can dance, but it's all about the physical. They don't care about anything else that she can do.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, and it's so interesting, and also it's an interesting aspect of the liquid itself, the actual substance, because you're right. It's like almost like instead of making super army soldiers, they're making super Hollywood people. You know what I mean? They could be using it for like, you know, army soldiers and stuff, creating like smarter and more physically strong soldiers, but instead they're making more beautiful people.
It's all vanity. That's kind of this whole thing boils down to is vanity. And
you're right. And you talk about dancing. Well, the next scene we definitely do because we get to pump it up. You know, we get some proper 80s style aesthetics. You know, the exercise costumes that they're wearing, and this is all just sexualization. This is all this is. It's the sexualization of women, of what we, you know, is what is depicted to us on our screens to make us feel bad, to try and get better, to be better. But obviously, you know, this is when you realise, like, you know, she is now taking over the role of what Elizabeth used to do, and now she's the main one. But yeah, she's pumping it up with all these, and I love how it's shot because it looks perfectly like 80s and how it's supposed to be, and it's very glamorized, very Hollywood. But then here is where we start to get the first mistake, because this is where Sue, being Sue that she is, and loving the life that she has now, because remember, they are one, sort of, that she leaves Elizabeth a little bit longer than she should, all essentially for a party and a game of sex. And then you start to think to yourself, hang on a minute, is Sue an arsehole? Like, but then you're like, but then also at the same time you start going, oh yeah, but then they are one. And then it's like the advantage of this now, you know, Elizabeth, you know, with them together, so to speak, it's like, well, now she can go and do this. This is now what she does. This is what she does now. She can go back to being young and beautiful and partying and doing all this sort of stuff. But then also it starts to make you think about like whether she's an arsehole. But then also it doesn't work as well. It doesn't work because as she is going to go, she starts basically paying the price for not following the rules. and then she starts getting like a nosebleed, I think it is, isn't it, when it first starts sort of
Yeah,
happening, and then she
she's like
realizes,
on that guy's lap, and she starts getting a nosebleed. And
yeah,
well, it's that thing you were saying, like, is she an arsehole, or is she just someone who's been born and wants to live her own life? She doesn't want to have to live her life vicariously through the other person. So it's like, why shouldn't she have an extra hour or two? Like,
yeah,
this other person has had 50 years of their life. I've been alive for a week. Why can't
yeah,
I have an extra hour? It's like,
yeah.
and at first you're like, oh, that's a bit, but you're like, I get it. But then the consequences start happening.
And exactly it. And that's what I love you say about that, because that is what happens next. Because now, unfortunately, when
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth awakens, this is where we start understanding the consequence of the actions. Where if you're not following these very
Mm-hmm.
simple rules that they laid out very simply, if you don't
Yep.
follow it, then unfortunately, the old body that they're saying is, the throwaway, unfortunate body is the way they're treating it. The pies
Yeah.
to pray is basically, she's essentially now got a witch's finger. And
Yeah.
obviously this wasn't, in the small print, although she probably didn't read it, and there probably
No.
wasn't any. But she wasn't in
No.
the small print. She would get a witch's finger, ready for
Mm-hmm.
Halloween, and then she goes. Basically, she rings them up, and basically they're not very helpful. They're pretty rude, in fact. But
Yeah.
rules are rules, so you've got to respect the
Yeah.
balance, and that's essentially what they're saying to her. Is saying, look, you respect the
Yeah.
balance. This shit won't happen. And that's your first indication of going, okay, I sort of know where we're going with this
Mm.
now.
And I always feel like it's that moment as well, because we had the birthing moment, which, like, I think a lot of people would think that would be the big moment for the film, or this must be the big gross moment. And in a lot of horror films, they kind of they just kind of do more contemporary violence. And this for me was the first moment, because like it's gonna get a lot worse and a lot grosser as we go. And it's this, like, that whole thing of, you can't take back your stupid decisions. Here is your consequence. And by the way, in an hour, this is going to be a lot worse.
Yeah, yeah,
But
exactly. And then so at this point, she's only got a witch's finger. She can put a glove on.
yeah.
So she goes out. She's basically going out to get a coffee. But then
Mm.
at this point she runs into another user, basically some old guy that's sitting there. And then
Mm.
you realise that basically he's got the same birthmark or the same scar as the doctor from the start.
Yeah.
And that's when you realise, you're like, oh, okay, so the guy at the start is now this old guy who is also, done
Mm-hmm.
using the substance and stuff. And this is a moment that's pretty sort of like really intense. Obviously he knows what it's like. He knows what's happening. He's already been doing it. He's
Mm-hmm.
obviously respecting the rules.
Mm.
And it gets like really intense, this scene, and he starts going fucking absolutely ballistic.
Yeah.
And this is a point as well where she basically has the opportunity to go out on a date to sort of make herself feel a little bit better with an
Mm.
old, I think it's like an old school or something like that friend
Yeah.
that it
It's an old
was.
school friend she saw at the hospital. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And she has the opportunity to do it. But this is also like quite a tough scene, I think this is, emotionally as
Mm-hmm.
well, and it's very well
Yeah.
written, but also more importantly, like incredibly performed, because it becomes now like, because of all of this is happening and we now have Sue, it's the paranoia and the anxiety of age and the reason
Mm.
why she's doing all of this. And it's when then she realizes to not go on this date, and it's a really, really sad moment in the movie,
Yeah.
because then you realize the impact of feeling the way that she does is having on her, to the point that now she has this better version of herself, so she doesn't want to
Mm.
go out. And Demi Moore is incredible in this
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah.
The way that she's showing us, essentially without words, how she's feeling in that
Mm.
moment, and the way she's rubbing off her makeup and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's a really, really emotionally tough scene,
Oh,
but it's
absolutely.
great because of Demi Moore and how she does it. And this is
Yeah.
why she is, she deserves everything that, and even throughout this
Mm.
movie, everything that she got from this movie, she deserves off moments like this in
Absolutely.
the movie.
Yeah. I remember watching this scene and thinking, here is Demi Moore, who's famously been, in film and for her looks. I mean, she was in G.I. Jane, which everyone thought shocking because she shaved her head, but
Yeah.
she was still extremely attractive, and she was in that film. She's shot very glamorously still, like she's made to look good. But in this film, she's made herself, not for lack of a better word, unattractive, according to Hollywood standards, and vulnerable. And she shows how how frustrating that is for an actress of her age. You know, she's happy to make herself just look normal
Yeah.
rather than this overly stylized, beautiful all the time person. And she's shown what a struggle that can be, and it really kind of proves that she's into this role and she's trying to make a point. And I was really affected by that when she was doing it. The first time I saw it in the cinema, I was really uncomfortable because I could feel how she felt in that moment, and she's willing to take it that far. I knew like she's absolutely right for this role because she's willing to take those chances and show the vulnerability of it all, and you can see the breakdown that she's having. It feels very real.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. And it makes you like think about the realness of it, you know, because she is that person that has probably been through this herself in the experience in Hollywood, and that realness shows through her performance. But also, like something that you said as well, what's really interesting is the way that they choose to film her in this movie is where they use so much harsh light on her. There's no soft lighting. They're not trying to necessarily like they're more so lighting the scenes behind her better than they're showing the light on her. So as I said, they're using a lot of harsh lighting on her to show her like the aging of her face more so. And then obviously when it comes to Sue, we get so much of the glamorized look and the you know the softer lighting, and we get the bloom on the lenses and on the you know the way they're editing the you know the color grading and stuff. But with Demi Moore in that, the way that they light her is very flat and very bright. And it's once again another purposeful decision to do that, to create and make you feel the way that you feel about her and make you feel more sorry for her. So it's not just about the performances doing it; it's about the creation, the technical level is working together to do what they need to tell you the story of how you're supposed to feel, and you do it, and you do feel that way. But then this is the moment where we get something that happens a couple times throughout the movie, where she heads straight to the fridge. And this is where I think we've got a little bit about the depression side of it, but also the jealousy side of it starts coming out. And she decides to start eating everything that's in the fridge, like a gross quiche and a giant fucking chicken. And then we're back to pump it up time. And then then her butt fucking pops. And you're like, what the fuck is going on? And like, this is where it starts. Obviously, you know, like it's another wild moment in this movie. And basically, it seems as though the food that Elizabeth has eaten, the way that food is consumed, or the manner or how much is consumed, is going to have a big effect on, you know, the replicant, you know, the different version of herself. Or whoever that is going to be. And we get like a really fucked up thing where the food doesn't come out the normal place. It comes out of her belly button. And it's so fucking gross and so weird. And it's another element to this movie that you're like, because it's so cringy, but not, you know, but like, because you're like, oh, it's fucking gross.
Yeah. And I think it's showing this symbiotic nature of each other. Because in the scene where she is eating all that food, Sue's doing an interview, and she doesn't mention, you know, where she comes from or like where her inspirations were, which would have been Elizabeth Sparkle. I mean, you could have just said she slags Elizabeth Sparkle off.
Yeah.
She actually like puts her down. She's like, well, her you know, her show was old and she needed to be replaced, and that kind of basically, and not in those terms, not in those exact words.
Yeah.
But like, it shows that she's abusing Elizabeth Sparkle mentally, and Elizabeth Sparkle is abusing Sue physically by just eating crap. They're both treating each other like crap.
Yeah.
And
then this is
kind
where
of having that knock-on effect.
Yeah, and that sort of like the partnership of them between them, it starts becoming you know, not a good thing between both of them. And then this is once again you're understanding where the story's going and so on, and where we're leading to. You know, it keeps on dropping little things as to go, okay, like I'm sort of understanding where we're heading to, you know, with this movie in regards to you know, how it's going to end, you know. And unfortunately, you then get the sense of like you have that sort of that like feeling in your stomach of going, this isn't going to end fucking well, is it?
No.
And then, but you're still enjoying the journey. You're still excited to know where it goes.
Yeah.
But what I love from this point is because she has the fucking belly button chicken, and
Yeah.
then at that point she's like, oh shit, because they're like Dennis Quaid calling her into the office, and they're all looking at the monitors. So there, she's like thinking, oh shit, like he's as he's seen my ass pop or whatever. But no, he's so happy with everything she's doing, so much so. That he's basically giving her the grandest network show of them all, and she's doing like the New Year's Eve party sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then this obviously sends Sue on like a spiral of like arrogance and greed and so on, where she basically is now like, oh, well, I am the fucking best person now, and I am it. And, you know, very, very, once again, a look on Hollywood, you know. So now she doesn't decide to not follow the rules and keeps Elizabeth laying around, like obviously way too long. And then unfortunately, when it comes to switch back, when she decides to, Elizabeth is once again paying the price because now she's turned further into like a woodlands witch.
I very much got like the witches like Roald Dahl.
Yeah,
and that's immediately what I thought. I was like, this is well, except with much saggier tits. But
yeah, she just turns, and you've got like she's sitting on the chair, and she has to like almost break her leg to fucking get it to work, and then she goes to obviously ring them again, like, you know, to stop the experiment. But then she's sort of in this moment, it's almost as if she sort of gives in to the fact that the damage is done, and like if now like you know, it's too far gone, so she's gonna have to continue. Like she's been put in the position now where there's no out, because if the out now is what she is, well, how is she gonna live like that? You know, and she doesn't want to live like that. And then once again, it's really, really sad. So then at that point, rather than like doing anything else or helping herself, she just does exactly what she did before, but instead of it being like a chicken in a quiche, she creates a whole cookbook of fucking food.
Well, she got that cookbook from Dennis Roddy Quaid. Like his retirement gift to her was a French cookbook, and she just goes absolutely nuts and mental, and she just completely abuses herself in every single way when it comes to food. And it's that thing. It's like they've all got their own coping mechanisms. Her coping mechanism in this for it all is to eat, and to indulge, and to rant and rave. And Sue's is to, you know, be a bitch and get praise, and to put like Miss Sparkle down. And so they're both kind of stepping and ruining each other in some way. And I always found it funny when she gets given the New Year's Eve thing, because like they're just like, on what grounds would you give an aerobics class that's shown on random days in the middle of the week the biggest night of the year? I don't get it, but it's just literally just because you look great. We don't care what else is going on. No one's really watching it properly.
Yeah, they're not watching it. They're watching you. Yeah.
You're hot, so you can have this.
Yeah. And also, Dennis Quaid is just a dirty perv who's trying to fuck her, and that's just the way it is.
Pretty much. I love that he's always wearing those like elaborate smoking jackets.
Yeah. And then from this point onwards as well, obviously, you know, she's had this like, you know, absolute feast of food once again, and then Sue awakens to find like the monstrosity of everything that Elizabeth has done.
Awful.
I mean, it's gross. It's fucking. It's everywhere. But then this is once again the rules are broken again, to beyond the point now, because Sue decides to fill up as many bottles of the gross fucking fluid that she possibly can, and at this point it jumps to 3 months later. So she basically is constantly doing this to only be Sue. There is no Elizabeth now. It's just Sue. And 3 months of, you know, of worth of this gross fucking liquid, which is obviously getting grosser and grosser at the time, and she's injecting it out of her back, and it's just, once again, it's just little practical effects of like something looking so gross and pussy. And once again, it's the intention of making us, the viewer, feel how we're supposed to feel, and they perfectly capture that, because something as small as putting a syringe in somebody's back, they don't even have to show it, but they do because
No.
they have to, because there's a point of showing it, because it's
Yeah.
about the passage of time, but also
Mm.
the disregard for Elizabeth's body.
She's literally sucking her dry.
Yes.
It's a very on the nose metaphor.
Yeah.
She's sucking her dry for fame.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And then obviously all this sort of happens, and then when Elizabeth, basically Sue has to actually switch back, and then Elizabeth, this is where she's essentially turned into like a vulture. She looks like a creepy witch vulture. You know what I mean? Like like if you give a wing, she'd be squawking from a tree.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
have you ever seen Legend?
Yeah,
with Tom
that's
Cruise?
it.
Yeah, the monster that comes out of the lake. I was like, it looks exactly like that, except not green. And I was like, just this grotesque thing. It's not just aged her. Like she's got like almost like a witch nose, and she's basically just a bag of bones. Her spine is deformed. Everything about her is just now completely wrong.
Yeah, and also once again, it's another moment where you feel so sorry for her, and you know that it's gone this, and you realise that there's nothing can be done. It's all completely out of control. But then at this point, for like, I don't know, the 100th time in the movie, but at this point she has decided enough is enough, and she wants to end it, and she wants to terminate Sue. But before the syringe fully runs out, to put the end. So basically, she has a syringe that, once again, very easily labeled. It says termination. She goes to terminate Sue, basically, but she doesn't quite do it, because once again, it's that feeling of, well, once again, like, what am I doing? What am I going to do? Like, now I'm a vulture witch woman. My life is over. So once again, Sue might as well have hers. So she decides to not do it, and then she basically puts it, like, jabs it into like her heart, and wakes her up. But this is like the moment where the turn in the movie that gets even more fucked up and like more sci-fi and everything, because now they exist in the same world, and that's fucking wild. I didn't expect that to happen.
No, I kind of thought it might happen, but not in the way that it happened. I thought that at just some point, like, it just might get out of sync, and they just wake up, and then they try to figure out how to exist with each other. But that's not what happens. A violent fight happens.
Yes, so this is going to be, and I was going to talk about it later, but I'll talk about it now. So there is, you know, the point of doing Let's Talk Horror is to talk as honestly about the movies as there is. And it doesn't matter how good I think that there is a movie. There always might be moments in it that I don't like. The fight scene is a moment in the movie that I don't like. And it's not the decision that the fact that they have a fight. And I love the fact that they become, like, there's two of them. I just don't like... There's sometimes when hyperstylism works, but this takes it to computer game levels.
It feels like a Marvel film.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And I mean, it's the way it starts is, again, just like the rest of the film, is they're just not talking and communicating to each other. And that's why it all kicks off. She doesn't go, look, I made a mistake, and then I've tried to save you. I'm sorry. But it just, because they're both shocked, it just turns into this fight. But it becomes weightless. Like, she's being thrown around the room, and she's like proper kicking her through like tables and stuff over like 10 feet distances. It is a bit over the top. But I mean, it's not the most over-the-top thing in the film. That's yet to come.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is a bit of a tonal shift for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, and for me, it was one of those moments for a movie that I've been so into the whole time. It was the specific moment is the kick that she does that sends her flying to the table. And that I remember sitting there watching it, and it was another moment where, like, it happens in movies and I'm like, no, don't do it that way. Like, like, you know what I mean? Because you nailed it on the head. It became a Marvel movie, and I don't like superhero sort of Marvel movies anyway. Only like, I like the old school ones and stuff. And some of them every now and again, they're good. But, the hyper stylized fighting of them, that's what we got in this moment. And I was almost disappointed and I was almost taken out of it from that moment. So as much as we're talking about how much we love this movie, there are certain aspects that I'm not a big fan of. This moment in it was one of the moments one of the only very rare moments in this movie that I was taken out of it, and I was brought a little bit down to earth, where I was like, okay, I wish they'd have shown it in a different way. But then from that point onwards, this is where like Elizabeth is completely forgotten. Sue is completely forgotten any of the rules because there's supposed to be one, but they're not, and she kicks the absolute living shit out of her. And I mean, Elizabeth is fucked. That's it from that. Like Elizabeth's done. That's Elizabeth. She's completely done. But as I said, because they forget that they are one. This is where Sue's world essentially starts falling apart completely. It's showtime. Things escalate very quickly. Sue's not made for this world, because she's not Elizabeth. She's created. She's a creation. With them separating, without the creator, she can't exist. And I love that aspect of like, the storytelling side of it. And I love the fact that it goes a little bit sci-fi, just horror sci-fi, because once again, we're having this in the mainstream and we don't really get it like this in the mainstream, not in this sort of way. But it really starts going really, really badly for Sue. Things really start escalating. She goes off and she's, going to do the New Year's show and everything like that. It really starts to fuck up. And basically, her teeth start falling out. And then this is when you're realizing, okay, like the transformation into whatever's going to happen is happening.
Yeah. Her body is just completely falling apart around her. And it's the fact that nobody notices as well. Nobody notices. Like Dennis Quaid gets right in her face and doesn't notice that she's clearly upset or struggling. She puts on her face. She doesn't say anything. And everyone's just like, oh, she's smiling. She must be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then, of course, with it being Hollywood, even though things have got to monstrous levels, let's just say, and they have created the monster, she still thinks that she's the belle of the ball. The beauty has now officially become the beast. And she basically takes to the stage. And I love the fact that it happens. Like it's not like the fact that it's like, oh, she's become this, in a lot of movies, they would have got to this moment and they would have had her run away or do something horrible to herself. You know what I mean? And go, oh, okay, like, this is what I've become. It's my fault. I'm going to end it. All that sort of stuff. But they don't. She is still like, I'm going on that fucking stage. And this is an ending to a movie that I fucking love.
It is foreshadowed right at the start as well. Like when she first takes the activator, it says, whatever's left, throw it away. Don't use it again. And it doesn't tell you why. It's just very subtle. It just says it. And then that's what happens because she tries to Sue uses it on herself to try and fix herself.
That's right.
And then the monstrosity is born of the mix of the two. And then that monstrosity is just, I think this is one of those films where, because like I say, I've got ADHD and I'm autistic, so I usually notice things coming, or I can put together the pieces. Not in a million years would I have put together the end of this film.
No, you're right. It's so cool because I love it when, you feel like you've seen it all. And then something happens where you've not seen it like this before. And basically it turns into a fucking bloodbath. Now, I will talk about the references, but I think it'd be interesting to sort of talk about the homages and the references all together. So we'll do that in a little bit because it'd be interesting to see if you've got ones that I haven't. So I won't talk about the one at the moment. But just to talk about this scene, basically her arm gets ripped off. and basically we get a blood cannon that is absolutely going everywhere, and it's not a little bit, it is gallons and gallons of
Gallons
blood
non-stop. It
getting
doesn't stop.
everyone. People are trying to leave,
Yeah.
people can't leave because they're covered in blood.
Yeah.
Dennis Quaid is sitting there going, what the fuck? And he's covered head to toe in blood. This scene is so fucking good that I get so much joy out of this moment and this ending of the movie, because it goes from 1 to 11 instantly. As soon as Sue's gone, that's it.
Tell you what I thought about that kind of scene, because before she takes the stage, the women there's a bunch of women dancing on stage, and they're in thongs, basically with their tits out.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that going, that's a bit much, because you can see in the audience as well, there's like kids there and stuff. This is like a New Year's extravaganza. I was like, that's a bit over the top. And I felt like they were going, you think this is over the top? Wait, just wait. Yeah. And then the next thing happens, you're like, okay, that the naked dancers is fine.
Yeah.
Because this is horrendous.
Absolutely. It is a moment that if you haven't seen The Substance, of course you should. Yeah. But it is a moment in cinema that has to be seen to be believed.
Yeah.
Because it just keeps going and keeps going. And then, of course, it does have to come to an end at some point. And it does. Because what happens is that she essentially gets like trampled on and stamped on and everything like that. She sort of explodes. But then... almost like a little jellyfish-esque head pops out that's got Elizabeth's head on it. It reminds me a little bit of anybody out there that knows what I'm talking about in The Frighteners. And there's a movie called The Frighteners, and Johnny Bartlett.
The face on the wall. Yeah,
yeah, that's it.
I know exactly what you mean.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what it reminds me of. So I always every time I see that bit, I'm like, oh, Frighteners, I fucking love that movie. But now I keep calling her Johnny Bartlett. But yeah, that bit always reminds me of Frighteners. And but what an interesting, basically, we almost end the movie essentially where we sort of began it, apart from the eggs. But when we're talking about Elizabeth's journey, we end it where we started, where she jellyfishes herself. Johnny Bartlett's back to her Hollywood starred fame at the start of it. And that's essentially where she disintegrates and rests. And that's how we end the movie, where she ends herself on the Hollywood star, fame, where she's almost clutching on to that fame, or almost as if all of this happening has made her appreciate the fame that she had, and that she ends on that star, almost acknowledging that she actually got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. You know what I mean? And that's how she chooses to sort of like, not that she can't really jellyfish everywhere, but that's how she ends it. She makes her way to that star, and that's how it ends.
I mean, the way I interpreted it slightly differently, where I thought she just can't see past that. She's just obsessed with the fame. Like, even her last dying moments were, but I'm famous. I'll get to my star. Oh, I can die on my star because I was famous, and I can still be famous. Look, I've got a star. And she dies on that hill. That's kind of how I see it. So it was like, all of this happened because you were obsessed with being famous. No matter what it was, you were obsessed no matter what, and however it happened, you wanted to be famous. And that's kind of how I interpret it. So it's really interesting that you've got a different kind of view of that. And that's what's great about the ending, because it is open to interpretation almost.
Yeah, and that's what's great about this movie. That's what's great about Hollywood. That's what's great about horror and cinema, is that we always take so many different moments. And I really like the way that you view it as well, and the different things. So I did say, so that's the movie. That's what happens in the movie. I've got a few things that I'd be really interested to talk about as well before we move on to anything else. So I did mention that this movie is a movie that's full of homages and full of references. Obviously, we've already said stuff about
one of them.
Absolutely, we've already said about Reanimator, but that is obviously one of the big visual elements of the movie is The Shining and Kubrick, movies as well.
Very
this is very, very homaging Kubrick and The Shining with many different things of what they do in the movie. Obviously, we've already said Reanimator. Of course, one of the big influences on this, and I believe she even said was The Fly. David Cronenberg movies is very apparent in this movie, whether it's this or even like a Videodrome, sort of like. There's a lot of moments in this movie that make you think of Kubrick, but they make you think of Cronenberg as well. You know, a king of body horror, and then you've got a king of aesthetical cinema. You know what? You know, multiple different. Of course, The Thing in there as well. You sort of have to mention The Thing with it being, you know, the monster mutation side of body horror. Psycho is in there as well, with a lot of the shower scenes and stuff like that. A lot of Hitchcock, and then of course with the ending, it's very Carrie-esque as well. With the blood as well. But I'd be interested to see if you picked up on any others as well.
So one of the things that I picked up on was a lot of Eastern references. So not necessarily a particular one, but the idea of the blood fountains and stuff like that, that is something you will find in a lot of like Japanese horror. So, for example, there's a film called Tokyo Gore Police, where people get their limbs cut off, and like it is just massive blood fountains. And there's, I think that film even ends with someone like getting his legs cut off, and he's using the blood fountains to like fly around. And so like they obviously kind of looked at that kind of cinema and went, what's something that they do in their films as well? Not any one particular, but what's something that's consistent across their films? And it is this ridiculous over-the-topness with their kind of gore and their blood. So that's kind of something I took from it, on top of the ones that you've already seen. I mean, that's just a big one for me. And I looked at, like, there was a lot of other things as well that there were non-horror. So you look at, like, films that are based around Hollywood, like Fatal Attraction, or what's it called? I can't remember. There's a lot of films that are set in Hollywood and around that kind of clearly had an influence on certain behaviors and stuff as well, and certain shots that were about like just how Hollywood is, or like crime in Hollywood. There was a big one of that. Like even having like just the mystery voice on the phone is something very Hollywood. You know, this the mystery voice that tells the answers to the question. And so there was just a lot of like they've taken a lot of horror aspects, also a lot of contemporary kind of ideas as well, not just horror. Like I said, I couldn't say any particulars now because, of course, as we're talking, my brain's gone empty. But
as it always will.
I'll remember later in about an hour, and I'll text you like, "Oh God, it was this."
That's it. But yeah, you're right. And what do you know? What's really so there has been a real difficulty for me with this movie, because I sit there and I really love like going, oh, like this is homaging this and this is homaging that. But the other concern for me for a while, apart from after my last watch where I really figured it out, was, am I concerned that is one of the lead aspects of the enjoyment of this movie that also created the structure of this movie? And is it too much? And that's what I started to get worried about at one point, where I kept on thinking about the homages and the references. And I started thinking to myself, is it too much? And is that another reason as to why I like the movie? But as part of the movie, you know what I mean? Like, what is it too much?
I mean, I think as well, like, I think this is obviously going off of horror, but this is something that Marvel had a problem with, like you were saying before. Everything's a reference to everything else. But in this, I think if you changed certain things, so take the activator, don't make it bright green, it doesn't change the activator and what it does. Or say that there's the hallway that's lined with the Elizabeth Sparkle posters that she walks down. Change the color scheme, change the carpet a little bit. It doesn't really change the shot. It doesn't change that aspect. So I think all of those things that were there are there as references and homages to people like us who were obsessed with horror. But when I showed it to my girlfriend a couple of months ago, she'd never seen it, and we watched it, she didn't notice any of those because she's not as big as a horror fan as me. She just saw the film. And so she wasn't being bombarded with these references. So I think it depends on your point of view. Like us, we because we know them and we see them, we can't help but notice them. But to someone else, it's them going, Hollywood is actually built on horror, and so it's the one thing that's it always makes money, and I think a lot of people don't admit how much they love horror. So I think that's kind of like Hollywood actually is built on horror. So here is all the kind of influences built into this fake LA.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I saw it.
Yeah, and you're right, and that's what's great, because after watching it this time to do all my prep and everything, and I'd seen it quite a few times now, because this is a movie that on a technical level, for somebody that wants to make movies, is an incredibly inspiring movie, because you look at movies like this and you go, I want to be able to create something like this. Like, this is mind-blowing, how incredible every aspect of this. Like I said, when I watch movies and destructure all these movies and say, what was this? You know, how does the sound? How's the directing? How's the cinematography? How's the editing? This is a movie that, like, hits everyone at the highest possible level that you can get on a technical level of filmmaking. So when I was watching it the other day, I always watch it for that aspect of it, to be inspired by it. But when I watched it on the other day, and I was thinking to myself, is it too much? Is there too many homages? Is there too many references? Is that leading us too far into, like, another reason for us to enjoy the movie? You're right in saying, well, that people who don't know it won't know it, and people who know it, like us, with us being horror. But when I watched it the other day, I think there is so much uniqueness and creativity in the technical side and the storytelling of this movie that none of that matters. That if you took away all the homages, like you're saying, if you'd have painted that hallway white and it didn't reference The Shining or Kubrick, it would have still just been the movie that it is. It's just, we just then go, oh, The Shining, and so on like that. So it's, when I watch this now, I'm really happy that I no longer really think about that, because now I just don't have to focus on it. I can just go, oh, okay, it is what it is. There's a lot of homages, but they're done with love. They're done on purpose because of the genre itself, and their love for the genre.
Yeah, and I think it's done so subtly that it's not like other films that do it. It is just it's set dressing. It's not part of the film itself, to a point where, like, it's if you removed it, it would change the film. Like, for example, like, I watched Alien Romulus again the other day, again because my cousin hadn't seen it yet, and that's literally got lines in it. Like a lot of other films that are like that, they've got lines in it, like the "Get away from her, you bitch," and or it's got all these different lines in it that they're a reference that's literally hitting you over the head, because they're like, remember the old thing, remember
this,
But in this one, it's like, did you notice that hallway is
you're
this?
right.
And did you notice that's a reference to this? And there's probably so much in there that we didn't even notice, because they've probably done so much that we might not. We might have noticed like 50, and there might be 100. Like, it's everyone's going to notice a different thing, and I think, like, even like, we didn't even notice. There's moments where I think she leaves the hospital and she's got a big scarf around her head and stuff. Like, that's a Psycho reference, you know, when she's disguising herself with the scarf and the sunglasses. But you didn't think of that at the time, and now I look back and go, oh, that looks very similar to Psycho, when she's going around and she's trying to hide because she's running with the money she stole. And it's that subtlety of it, rather than it being like a hammer to the head, I think that makes it a lot better.
There's so much intelligence behind the way that the references are constructed.
Yeah.
And that makes it so much fucking better. It just makes it even more incredible. The last thing before we get into anything else that I want to say, because we do some production info, and then we go through like our very quick overall thoughts before anything else. The last thing that I do want to say, because I have to, and you mentioned it earlier, the sound. So the sound design, I have the two different things. You've got the sound design in regards to the score. It's fucking proper, like, French electro, great score. It sounds great. It's not overpowering at any point. It hits the beats that it needs to. If it doesn't need to have a score, it won't. It won't just shove it in there because it sounds fucking cool. It just works. Every single beat of sound in this movie, just talking about the score, feels like it's made for the movie, and it feels like we don't get that much in Hollywood anymore, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. But in regards to the sound design of how they're using sound to make you as a viewer understand how this person is feeling at this time is unbelievable. So, like, the moments when we first meet Sue, and it's all like as if you're underwater, you know, and you're getting like a variation of underwater sound of her being birthed for the first time. And you're like, how fucking clever, how crazy is that on a technical level, on a storytelling standpoint, the sound design in this movie is phenomenal. And once again, something that we feel we get very rarely in cinema today. And that's why, and when I get to like my overall thoughts, this is why a movie like this was the statement that it is and was as big as it was. And I think there's a lot of aspects that people don't understand why this movie was as big as it was. But yeah, sound design's incredible.
Absolutely. I mean, I always like it's the horn noise is like that. I can't do it, you know. But that use of that noise, it's that they use throughout the film for the activator more than anything. It's almost its theme. It kind of instills that. It's so unique. I hear that and I go, that's from The Substance, and it's that kind of uniqueness of it, and that the kind of like we're not going to do the conventional strings and weird noises and constantly having sound going on, and I will drop it out if there's going to be a jump scare, and it's that use of sound to manipulate emotion. I think a lesser filmmaker, say for example, going back to the dinner scene with Elizabeth and Dennis Ruddy Quaid, I think a lesser director would have had her say how upset she is and how he's a disgusting pig. They would have said it out loud. But she's using the sound and the visuals to show that that's how she feels. And that's something that's done throughout the entire film. And it's even like the ending with the blood fountains and everything. It's actually like upbeat music.
Yeah.
It's kind of show that this is so absurd. And it's that use of like, you don't have to take this seriously. Like another film, again, they probably would have put like a horrible, like dissonant score over the top of it to show how horrible and violent it is. But this one, they went like this. How ridiculous is this? Let's make this a farce. And it's that use to show emotion and the manipulation of the audience without having to say it. It's so well done. I was blown away by the sound design and music in this. It's something that I hear a lot. I've got quite an, as I said, as a musician, I really pick up on it. And this, it just flowed so perfectly for the entire film. It just made every scene better for it. Nothing fell short in my mind when it came to the sound and the music.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's in, like, you know, it's one of those movies that when you watch it, like for multiple viewings, you continue to enjoy it, but it gets better and better because you're picking up on different things, whether it's what you're seeing, whether it's what you're hearing, whether it's what you're feeling. It's a very, very expertly crafted on a technical level movie. And I love it. And we're getting to, as I say, we do our very quick overall thoughts because everybody knows that we fucking love the movie. We've spoken for ages about it. We're not saying it's shit. I've got like one thing that I don't like about it, and that's it. But yeah, so we'll talk about overall thoughts very quickly in a sec. So, but production info wise, and I'll get through these. So, sadly, so Ray Liotta was cast in the film, but obviously he died before they got a chance to do it. So a year before they could film his scene. So Dennis Quaid replaced him, but Ray Liotta is still mentioned in the director's thank you notes during the credits. So. Also, I'm a big Ray Liotta fan, so I personally would have actually loved to have seen him in this role. I think Dennis Quaid's incredible. But
that would have been such a different tone, though, because Ray Liotta's got such a different energy. I've seen Dennis Quaid do this kind of energy before, so like, it's extremely exaggerated from what he's done before. But Ray Liotta, I feel like you've seen obviously in like Goodfellas and whatever. It would have brought such a more
like a menacing
threatening,
sort of thing.
Threatening manic energy rather than asshole energy.
Yeah.
And that would have been very different and very interesting. But I think they really nailed it with Dennis Quaid replacing him. I think it was a really good choice. It is a shame that he passed. He passed way too young.
Yeah, way too. And, you know, I fucking love Ray Liotta. And one of my favourite movies of all time is a movie called Narc. And if people haven't seen that, Narc has got Jason Patric, Ray Liotta. And that's a movie that could have been a pretty shit movie, but it's got two powerhouse performances from Ray Liotta and Jason Patric that are two of my favorite performances of all time as a combination of two actors working so well together. It's incredible. If you haven't seen Narc out there, go and watch it. It's fucking great movie, but because of people like Ray Liotta and Jason Patric, incredible movie, incredible performance. But you're right, and also with Dennis Quaid, it's like being able to come in but not have it. Like, I mean, we've already said he looks fucking grotesque in this movie, and you've got to have no consideration for your own look. You know what I mean for this movie. You know, there's no like. You know, you can't have vulnerability for this sort of role. You know, so much credit for Dennis Quaid for doing this. And you're right, he was absolutely fantastic in it. So Universal Pictures originally was attached to distribute the film through their deal with the film's production company, Working Title. But at some point during the making of the movie, they ended up stepping away from the project. Fucking mugs. According to Hollywood Reporter, multiple sources said rights to the film shortly before its premiere at Cannes Film Festival in competition. Basically, Mubi of all people, ended up acquiring the rights. But Universal fucked up and dropped the ball big time on that one.
I bet Mubi was so happy. But I guess it's one of those, because Universal, when I think of Universal now, I think of mainstream, generic Hollywood movie. Hollywood, yeah. But I think they probably went, we don't know how to market this. We've got no idea. So Mubi probably kind of went, what have we got to lose?
Yeah.
We'll spend the money.
They're like, we fucking won.
Yeah. and it really like elevated their platform for it. They kind of showed that they had a good movie. I think, was it Demi Moore who really pressed for this film as well?
Yeah.
She really, really wanted this to happen.
Yeah, she would. And you can see why she would. But once again, it's like, what I love about this is that she's not progressing it to happen because she thinks that this is going to be like put her back on the map as the top Hollywood beautiful star. She is doing the absolute opposite of that, where she's just like, I want to create this because for her, this is a challenge for her. You know, and I think that what goes to show people like Demi Moore, where she's accepting the challenge and she realizes that there's a message behind this, and this message is actually something she's lived through, and she wants to show that message. And so you can see why she would fight for it. To further reference the movie The Fly, like what I've already mentioned, all the body parts that fall off Sue near the end of the movie are the same as the body parts that fall off Seth Brundle in The Fly. So she has the tooth, the fingernail, and the ear. It all happens the same as The Fly. So it's another reference, and also that's fucking cool. I love that, like a little thing. And then the last thing I've got is it took about 6 hours for Margaret Qualley to get into the Monstro prosthetic suit. She had to wear it for 8 days in a row, leading to panic attacks as she could only see out of one eye, and her movements were heavily restricted. But it also she had an acne and a skin allergy outbreak that lasted some time after filming. So there was like something where she was supposed to go into filming afterwards and do some other things that she couldn't do because of the irritation on her skin because of what it did. So, you know, once again, like, I know a lot of talk about the movie was Demi Moore, and obviously, like, I thought, so it should be, you know. But at the same time, Margaret Qualley, she's fantastic in this. She plays the part really she's supposed to of Sue really well. But once again, it's the dedication to the role to say, once again, it becomes, I feel a lot of this movie is about the message and what it's trying to say, and you know, everybody is working towards that message and putting that message out there. Not only, but it never feels like it's shoving it in your face. It just it's trying to create art, and through the art that it's creating, it's telling you its message through the art that it's creating. This movie is fucking art. That's the way I look at it.
It is 100%. It is. I agree, and I think this is one of those instances where a lot of people go, well, horror isn't art, or horror can't say something. But this is, it absolutely can. And this is how you do a message properly. Like, you don't have someone stand up. I think there's an episode of Futurama. Bear with me, I've got a point. But there's an episode of Futurama where there's like an opera going on, and someone goes up and goes, "You can't have your characters stand up and say how they feel. That makes me angry." And that's how I feel like modern Hollywood is. But this film just shows the characters feeling these feelings and showing this message and what this situation, even though it's obviously extremely storyalized, but what this kind of environment can do to people, and they don't say it out loud, and that's what makes it such a good message and done so well.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Well, we're moving to that really quickly.
Yeah.
Let's move into our overall thoughts on the movie. It's just very quick overall thoughts. What you would think of the movie? We know we love it, but we might as well say a little bit more.
Well, I absolutely love it. I don't think there's anything about it that I didn't like, other than I think the overall runtime was a bit too long. I feel
it's like 2 hours 20 in, I think.
Yeah. I think I did a review of this on my channel, and I said this is one of those films that you will either love it or hate it. There isn't any middle ground for it, and that's kind of my thought on it. I loved it, but like I said, I think there was just moments that you could just trim it down. But everything else we talked about, the sound, acting, everything, I think it's flawless.
Yeah, you're right. I think for me, once again, we've said it throughout. This movie is perfect almost in every aspect. I'm just going to I'm pretty much just going to say this for my overall thoughts. I'm just going to talk about the awards. It was nominated for 5 Oscars and won Best Hair and Makeup and Hairstyling. It was nominated for 5 Golden Globes, and Demi Moore, Best Actress. She won Best Actress. And obviously, it was nominated for 5 more. It was nominated for 5 BAFTAs, and it won the Hair and Makeup again. It won Best Screenplay at Cannes Film Festival. Demi Moore won Best Actress at the Screen Actors Guild Awards, and it won 3 awards at the Critics' Choice Awards, including Best Actress for Demi Moore. And that's just some of them. Now, this is horror. This is horror cinema. We don't get this in horror cinema. We know as horror fans, we know how incredible horror is, but we know how disregarded and disrespected it is on a professional level. We know there is so much that goes into creating horror on every aspect that should be awarded and isn't.
Yes.
So when we get a movie like The Substance that does it, that's almost an indication to show you why you should see this movie if you're curious. But the reason that it gets all those things is because, and like you were saying, it's every aspect of this movie is a 10 out of 10 aspect. I truly love how inspired by this movie I am on a technical level. This is the type of movie that makes people want to make movies.
Yes.
Because not only, of course, you're telling a story through writing, through story, through concept, through idea, but you're creating, like I said, art on a cinematic and technical level. Aesthetically, this movie is fucking gorgeous.
Absolutely.
But it also makes me gutted that it feels like that this is a rarity these days, and it makes me feel gutted that we don't have cinema the way that it was, because this happened a lot more. Movies like this happened a lot more. We just don't get it this much anymore. Which sucks.
I mean, I think it's, as someone said it best about how Hollywood used to be. If the concept is good and you put the right people behind it, you can make a lower grade movie an A-class movie. And for example, like Alien, if you look at Alien, really, Alien is a B movie with an A-list crew behind it. And you can create films like that. And they used to take that chance, and they used to push and go, what can we do to make this the best movie it can be? And I feel that's what they've done with The Substance. They've gone, no, we're going to do everything right. We're going to take our time. We're going to push for this to be an actual proper movie and done right. And that rarely happens nowadays. I think I remember watching an interview with Jason Blum, and he was like, the reason I don't make comedies is because I can make a horror movie for $1 million and it'll make me 30, and I can just chuck it out and people will go see it. And that's how people kind of view horror, which kind of pisses me off. Especially it's even I remember seeing it thinking Demi Moore should have at least gotten nominated for an Oscar. And I remember thinking back to, I think Silence of the Lambs was classed as the first horror to really win an Oscar, but they classed it as a thriller because they didn't want to say it was a horror. because Hollywood are like, no, horrors don't win awards, which blows my mind. And it's just, but the fact that best makeup comes from horror, usually the best sound design comes from horror, and some of like, yeah, like lower grade horror doesn't always have the best acting, but when you really try and put the effort behind it, you will get some of the best acting you've ever seen. And it's just such a shame that horror is just kind of looked at by Hollywood. I think it is starting to change slowly. Like, look at this year. Every successful film this year has been a horror.
Yeah, pretty much.
Every single one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think now more people, directors are wanting to do more horror. Actors are coming to terms with the fact that they actually get to act in horror movies and go through the different levels of emotion in horror. There's so much to love about horror. And the fact that it hasn't had the love that it deserves or for all these years. It's nice that it is now, but it means that all the movies that deserved it in the past never got it. But once again, a movie like The Substance is the reason why it starts paving the way for those thoughts that horror is more than just horror. It is cinema, and it is more important to cinema in general than, for me personally, any genre that there ever has been. On a viewpoint as a viewer, but also on a technical level, horror has been integral to the progression of cinema. And they will use that progression of cinema in other genres because of horror. So, but yeah, in regards to The Substance, if all the awards, if all the accolades, if all the great reviews isn't enough for you to go and watch it, then I don't. There's nothing more I can do to fucking help you. You've got yourself to blame if you don't like it. But there we go. So that's The Substance. That's everything about The Substance. We've spoken loads about it. You can tell how much we love it. It's a truly, it's art. That's what this movie is. Your first time, if you know the show, then you know that your first time is a segment, which is where I ask you, this horror community, or any of you out there, to send me over your first time horror movie memories, and I read it out on an episode. This one comes to me from VHX Music on Instagram. They sent it over there. It's a horror synthwave. It's fantastic. I really love it. The people creating it are fantastic as well. So go and check them out on Instagram at VHX. Not VHS, but VHX Music. If you love horror, if you love synthwave, you'll love it. But they put that. I remember watching the original Halloween at my friend's house when we were 8 years old. His parents were at work, and he had a babysitter. I made that babysitter walk me home that night, which was literally just over the road. It absolutely shit me up, and he still absolutely loves it. Look. Good. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is why I love having these memories. I love, because for me, I get so much joy out of reading them, but also I love sharing them on to people. But I also like to know if my guests can remember theirs. Can you remember your horror memory?
I can. It's burned into my brain. I remember, obviously, we're older men. Let's face it. We're older men, so we had things like VHS that was taped off the telly. And I remember going to my dad's house, and he had loads of VHSs that he just recorded things off TV, and he just wrote things on. It was mostly Star Trek, to be fair. But I remember one day, just like, I think I was about 8 years old, and I saw one, and it just said on the side, Alien. That's all it said. I remember turning to my dad and going, Dad, can I watch this Alien film? And he just turned to me and said, if it scares you, it's your own fault. And I remember watching it and not understanding anything that was going on. It scared the life out of me, but I loved it. It was just an experience I'd never had before. Because I grew up on like little things like all these little cartoons that were like the Toxic Crusader or the Beetlejuice cartoons, stuff like that. I've got
one of them behind me down here, yeah.
Brill. But that was like my first proper horror film. And it was all just because I was 8 years old and I thought aliens were cool. And I remember it scared the life out of me, but I absolutely loved it. Everything about it. And yeah, I just remember my dad. I'll always remember that. scares you, it's your own fault.
It's
And I think
your
that's
own
all of
fault.
horror.
Yeah,
That's
that's
all of
it.
horror. If you choose to watch something, it's your own fault.
It's your own fault.
But
And what I love, there's two things that I take from that. One, it's another thing we got in common because Alien was my first horror movie as well. But
great.
two, I think it's really interesting because I think that because of watching movies like, say, something like Alien as your
Mm,
first, or if it's somebody's first movie out there,
mm,
because that is essentially as good as you're going to get. We
yeah.
almost get brought up with as good as you're going to get. And then that's why people like us get to have the conversations that we have
Mm,
are not just about going, this movie's shit, this movie's good. We get to go into the detail a little bit more on the technical
mm,
side and why this is purposeful and why this is purposeful or why it
yeah.
shouldn't happen. And I think that that's a really good thing that we were lucky enough to have
Mm,
growing up.
absolutely. I remember. I think we were talking about this. Maybe I think it was before we started recording, but like when obviously with the kind of films that we grew up with, like going to the video store and stuff. I think when I was growing up in the 90s, the films that you did have access to were older. It wasn't like it was now where it's going to be in streaming in 12 weeks.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a year before a film left the cinema and you might be able to get a VHS. 2 to 3 years before it was even shown on TV. And
Yeah.
everything that they did show on TV was from the 70s and the 80s. So we got to see these older classic films more frequent than we did modern. And I think we were blessed with that because there was
We
so
were.
much iconic film from that time. And that's the only
Yes.
stuff that they showed because that's what people wanted to see. They didn't just show everything, and you don't have access to everything. So we had to grow up on things like Silence of the Lambs and Alien and Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th. All these films that were so popular that they were put on TV and they were accessible. And I think that really molded me as a film lover, having access to this iconic cinema rather than anything else.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, I was able to access more and more. And I think I judge a lot of the film that I watch now on a standard with that. And I think a lot of people who are younger than us haven't had that experience, so they have access to what is just available now
Yeah.
and what's popular now or what is the new thing now. And I think that kind of that that standard hasn't really been instilled in some people,
Yeah.
which is a shame. But hopefully, doing these kinds of podcasts and stuff will get them to go and go, hey, here's something that came out 40 years ago. Give it a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. And I love that you said that because what's interesting for us is that our foundations of horror are the
Mm,
foundations and the iconography of
mm,
horror. And it's
yeah,
exactly right with what you're saying. You know, growing up, we were watching the movies of old that were the foundations of what created horror cinema, like you're saying, like
yeah,
Halloween and Texas Chainsaw Massacre and movies like
mm,
that. But then we got to evolve with the genre with movies like
mm,
Scream and the Blair Witch Project and so on.
yeah,
But we were part of the foundation, part of the evolution. And
mm,
then now it is where it is. And that's where we
yeah,
are with horror. And now, if you're growing up with horror,
mm,
you're having to go backwards and you're having to go, but it's about wanting to. And that's the
mm,
the thing as well with
yeah,
horror. If people love horror and you're growing up with the horror that there is now, it's very, very important to understand the foundations of where the iconography came
yeah.
from. And that's what's very, very important.
I think so. And I always go, when I look at an older film, say, for example, we've just had a new Frankenstein. But the original was what 1930 something or other. I can't remember the exact year. But obviously, when I first watched that as an adult, I saw it as a kid on TV and stuff, and didn't really you don't register that it's an old film. But I remember watching it as more of an adult and going, I'm gonna watch this and try and put myself in the mindset of someone from the time. And like so, I'm looking at this as going, how would someone from 1930s react to seeing this? Same as like when I watched The Exorcist for the first time. How might someone from the 70s watching this? How would they feel? Yeah, of course I've seen Saw and Hostel and bloody High Tension and all this stuff. And I go, but how
Yeah.
would someone feel if I was sat down in 1980 and I put Friday the 13th on for the first time? It's having to be able to have that kind of cognitive thought when you put on these older films to see, well, this is where that came from. Oh, this is why that would have been shocking back then. I think that's a really important aspect to have when you're watching an older film, is to try and have the correct mindset for watching the film, not just looking at it as like, oh, this is an old film. Oh, that's a bit clunky. Oh, that's a bit old effects. Go, well, if I was in 1980, this would blow my mind.
Yeah, and also what's incredible is that, like, by going backwards, you might end up finding your subgenre. By going backwards, you might find your lane in horror that you never knew existed, or you might even find your favorite horror. I mean, I grew up with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but growing up, still to this day, I believe it to be one of the most beautiful movies that's ever been made.
Oh,
but it
gorgeous.
fucking shouldn't be. But it fucking is. It's stunning. And once again, just like The Substance, it's because they've got the right people who understand what they're doing. Irrelevant of budget, it becomes art. And that's one of the things for anybody out there that's newer to horror, who's learning horror and wants to understand more about horror. You've got to go backwards to understand the journey that horror's been on. And some of it is going to be fucking shit. But so much of it is integral to horror in cinema, and there's so much to love, so it's fantastic. But there we go. Look, we love horror, as you can tell. We love The Substance. It's absolutely fantastic to have you on the episode talking about The Substance. And,
no problem.
You know, anybody out there, I'm sure, if you don't agree with it, that's fine. You're fucking wrong. But it's absolutely fine. But now, Dan, it is now your time to promote. The worst part of it all is to promote everything that you've got going on with Bearded Horror Reviews.
Well, yeah, so I review horror movies over mainly on YouTube under the Bearded Horror Review. I also post news and stuff as well, so I do long-form reviews, but then I also try and post up news throughout the week. And I'm on TikTok and Instagram mainly as well. And you can find me all over there if you want to know more about what's going on in horror, and if you like my opinion on things, that's where you can find me.
So there we go. And of course, please make sure you go and do everything you can. You know, if you enjoy Let's Talk Horror, please go and support everything Dan is doing as well. You know, all of us independent horror creators, we need your support more than ever, and always we need your support. And it's incredibly motivating when we get it. As you can tell, Dan, he's come on the show, and we've had an amazing conversation about a movie, and you know, you'll get that from everything that he's doing as well. So go and support everything that Dan's doing over on Bearded Horror Reviews everywhere you can. In regards to Let's Talk Horror, it is here. As I always say, it's still going. Somehow, I'm still doing it. And I hope that everybody's still enjoying it. As I said, The Substance is The Substance. If you haven't seen it, you've been under a rock somewhere, you've got to. But as I said, in regards to Let's Talk Horror, please make sure, if you haven't already, if you're enjoying it, go and rate and review it on all Spotify, Apple, Good Pods. Get me on the Good Pod charts. That would be fucking lovely. And it takes 2 seconds, and all you got to do is put it on the highest you can if you love it, and it's done. Please make sure you subscribe on the YouTube channel, because I don't have a following on YouTube. But if I get one, I'll do more. You know what I mean? That's what it's all about. It's all about supporting pages, supporting creators, so we can do more, so we can evolve the channel, to reach new audiences. Because I fucking love doing this, even when I feel shit like this. and I sound the way that I do, but I'm still doing these episodes because I want to do what I can to have a conversation, and I want to have a conversation that I think this horror community will enjoy, and I hope that you do. So keep continuing to support Let's Talk Horror. Make sure you're supporting Dan with Bearded Horror Reviews, and Patreon. By the time this episode comes out, I've either started it again, or I ain't got a fucking clue, because I'm still trying to figure it all out. Because at some point, Patreon will do what I need them to do. And hopefully, by the time this episode's come out, they've done it. And if they have, hello, everyone from Patreon again. I'm happy to be back. If not, you're not there yet. But that's it. So thank you, Dan, once again, for coming on the show.
No problem at all. Thank you.
That you've come.
Well, it's been a pleasure, mate. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. And then until next time, stay creepy, fuckers.